You thought you knew the woods. You thought Wrong Turn was just a movie. But what if I told you, the path never really ended? In 2026, the descent goes deeper than ever. A cursed trail. A forest that feeds. And a route that remembers every soul it swallows. This isn't just a wrong turn. It's the last descent. Get ready for the scariest, most disturbing story ever told. Chapter by chapter, we'll drag you into the dark. And you may not come back the same. Welcome to Wrong Turn, the last descent. Subscribe. Like. If you dare. Movie camera now, let the horror begin. The sky over West Virginia bled with bruised clouds as the last light of dusk died behind the ancient treetops of Bear Valley. A sign, rusted and clawed by time, stood crooked by the roadside, mile marker 17, NO outlet, NO service, NO return. Most who drove this far into the hollow didn't notice it. And those who did, rarely turned back in time. Hannah Reyes, 27, adjusted her seatbelt and squinted into the thickening fog ahead. Her white Jeep Compass rattled down the deserted mountain road, tires crunching gravel that hadn't seen maintenance in years. The GPS had gone dead 30 minutes ago, frozen on a screen that said, recalculating, before glitching out entirely. Tell me again, muttered Connor, her younger brother, slouched in the back seat. Why are we taking the sketchiest shortcut on earth? Hannah shot a quick glare at him through the rearview mirror. Because Google Maps said it's 45 minutes faster than the main highway. And we're already behind schedule. Yeah, said Sasha, Hannah's best friend from college, but Google Maps didn't mention the part where the road turns into a horror movie set. Connor laughed nervously. It literally looks like we're driving into a monster's throat. Relax, said Hannah. We'll be through it in 20 miles. Just keep an eye out for a turnoff. We're supposed to cut through Bear Ridge Trail and reconnect with Highway 64. But the turn never came. The deeper they drove, the more unnatural everything felt. The trees loomed taller, gnarled and twisted like they had grown under stress, reaching toward the road like they wanted to trap them in. The air grew colder despite the early autumn, and the forest outside became unnervingly quiet. Not a single chirp, rustle, or sound of life. Then, the car jolted violently. Wham! Hannah slammed on the brakes. The Jeep skidded, nearly fishtailing into a ditch. They all screamed as the vehicle stopped just inches from a decaying log in the middle of the road. What the hell was that? Sasha gasped. Something under the car, Hannah said, heart pounding. She threw the gear into park and stepped out. The fog thickened the moment her boots hit the ground. Visibility dropped to barely 20 feet. The air reeked of rot and damp moss. She crouched beside the front bumper, and froze. There was something nailed to the log. A small, mangled doll, with glass eyes staring straight up at her. Its limbs were stitched from animal bones and human hair. Its mouth was sewn shut with copper wire. Blood, not dried, fresh blood, dripped from its belly. She recoiled in horror. Jesus, she whispered. What is this? Is that, some kind of voodoo thing? Sasha asked, stepping closer. Connor had climbed out, too, looking around. There's something wrong with this place, Hannah. I say we turn back. But when they looked behind them, the road had vanished into the fog. So thick and black now, it looked like night had fallen behind them, but it was barely 6:40 p.m. No way. That's not right, Hannah murmured. We just came down that road. There's no way we're going forward either. Sasha shouted, pointing. Look. A second doll. This one hung from a low branch just a few feet ahead. It spun slowly on a string of what looked like sinew, its tiny wooden hands twitching in the windless air. And then, in the suffocating silence, they heard it, a moan. Not quite human. Not quite animal. Low. Wet. Sick. It came from the trees to their left. Connor's breath caught in his throat. We're being watched. Sasha backed toward the car. Screw this. Let's go. They piled in. Hannah floored the gas. The Jeep roared forward, crushing the log with a stomach-turning crunch and smashing the first doll beneath the tires. As they drove, the road narrowed, the tree limbs stretching lower, scraping across the roof like claws. Every few feet, another doll. On signs. On branches. Staked into the ground. One even nailed to a dead deer, hung upside down from a pole like a warning. This isn't a trail, Hannah whispered. It's a path. What kind of sick freaks live out here? Connor asked, panicked. Then the road ended. Suddenly. Abruptly. Like it had never existed. The gravel just stopped. The Jeep screeched to a halt at the edge of a pit. A massive sinkhole, wide as a football field, yawned before them, filled with black water and broken trees. Hannah killed the engine. Behind them, the fog moved like it was alive. And then they heard it again. The moaning. Closer this time. Deeper. Okay, Sasha said, voice trembling, I'm not sitting here waiting to die. Let's walk back. There's no way the road just disappeared. Connor hesitated. We could build a fire. Wait until daylight. Hannah stared at the sinkhole. She couldn't shake the feeling that if they waited, something would come from below. No. We're walking. Grab your bags. They grabbed flashlights, some snacks, jackets. Hannah kept a pocketknife in her boot. It felt laughable now, like bringing a toothpick to a gunfight. As they walked, the fog followed. They retraced the path, only now, it was unfamiliar. Nothing looked the same. No broken branches. No tire marks. No sign of the Jeep or the road. It was as if the forest had swallowed their trail. After 30 minutes, they realized they were walking in circles. Is that the deer again? Connor asked, pointing. The dead animal was still there, upside down, but now the doll nailed to its ribcage was different. Its face had eyes that looked like theirs, brown for Sasha, blue for Connor, green for Hannah. They backed away. Snap. A twig broke in the trees behind them. Snap. Crunch. Something was walking. Coming closer. They spun their lights around, but saw only trees. Then they saw movement. Low to the ground. Fast. Crawling. Bones cracking as it moved. Then. A face. Or what had once been one. Half-rotted. Flesh like melted wax. Empty eye sockets with squirming things inside. A mouth. Permanently stretched open, teeth shattered. It smiled at them as it disappeared behind a tree. What was that? Sasha screamed. They ran. Branches tore at them. Thorns sliced their skin. The air grew hotter, suffocating. Like they were descending into a furnace, even though they were surrounded by cold, damp woods. They didn't stop running until they burst into a clearing. And stopped cold. There, in the center, stood a house. Old. Rotten. Leaning like it wanted to fall. Its windows were dark, but smoke curled from the chimney. The air stank of meat gone bad. Do we go in? Connor asked, breathless. It's shelter, Sasha said. We can regroup. Maybe find a phone. No one has a phone out here, Hannah said, eyes fixed on the door. But it might be safer inside than out here with, whatever that was. They crept toward it. The porch creaked under their weight. As Hannah reached for the door. It swung open on its own. Inside, candlelight flickered. A long wooden table stretched across the room, lined with dusty chairs. Bowls sat in front of each one, filled with dark, congealed soup. And hanging from the rafters, meat. Flayed animals. Bones. Something vaguely human-shaped among them. "Oh my God," Sasha gagged. They turned to leave. The door slammed shut. All the candles flared at once. And then, a voice. Not from inside. But from within the walls. "You shouldn't be here," it whispered. Male and female. Young and old. All at once. "We didn't mean to," Hannah began. Too late. Suddenly, the meat hanging from the rafters moved. Twitched. One chunk of flayed flesh slowly turned its head, its face eyeless, but grinning. Connor screamed. The floor cracked beneath them, and gave way. They plunged downward. Fell for what felt like minutes. And landed in black water, icy and foul. The three of them surfaced gasping. The smell was unbearable. All around them, walls of meat. Carved with symbols. Faces stitched into the flesh. Some moved. Some moaned. They were in a chamber below the house. A place that was not part of this world. Hannah pulled herself out of the water, shivering. The flashlight she clutched flickered, and landed on something ahead. A staircase. Not made of wood or stone, but of bones. Leading down. Deeper. Much deeper. From the darkness at the bottom, a sound began to rise. Not a moan this time. A chant. Dozens of voices. Low. Echoing. Ancient. Sasha climbed out next, teeth chattering. What the hell is this place? Connor emerged last, bleeding from the arm. This isn't just some cannibal hillbilly hideout. This is something older. Hannah looked down the bone staircase. The chanting grew louder. She didn't know why, but she felt it, this was a descent they had already begun. And there was no turning back. They stood at the edge of the nightmare, the air thick with mold, death, and a stink too ancient to name. The bone staircase before them wasn't some crude trap or creepy art piece, it was intentional, constructed with a surgeon's care. Femurs. Tibias. Jawbones still dotted with teeth. Bound together by twisted sinew, dried veins like ancient rope. It descended into pure blackness. And from that blackness came the chanting. Not English. Not Latin. Something far older, deeper. Something that made your soul recoil. "Do we go down?" Sasha's voice trembled, barely above a whisper. Her flashlight quivered in her grip. "We're already inside whatever this is," Hannah said, staring down the staircase. "Staying here means waiting to die. Or worse." "I think worse already found us," Connor muttered, clutching his wounded arm. Blood dripped from a gash torn open by something in the water. The chanting surged louder for a moment, then fell back into rhythm. Rhythmic. Ritualistic. Like a heartbeat. Calling them. They started down. One step. Then another. The bones creaked beneath them but held. Each footfall echoed through the chamber, swallowed by the black void below. The flashlight beams flickered like dying stars in a dead universe. The walls surrounding them pulsed. Not metaphorically. Literally. They were made of flesh, thick, grotesque skin stretching over bones and walls like someone had peeled a giant and nailed it inside out. Carved into the walls were faces. Real faces. Stitched in. Eyelids sewn open. Some screamed silently. Others moved, mouthing words without sound. Their agony soaked the air. "This place is alive," Connor whispered. "I think," Hannah swallowed hard. "We're inside something. Not a building. A body. A being. The staircase twisted and turned. Downward. Always downward. Eventually, they reached a platform, an open chamber. Dozens of figures stood in a circle around a black pit, heads bowed, chanting. Dressed in rotting skins, bones laced through their flesh. Some were missing eyes. Others, faces. Yet all stood perfectly still, like mannequins animated by dark will. The bone choir, Sasha whispered. How do you know? Connor asked. I don't. She turned pale. The name just came to me. Like, something whispered it into my brain. They stayed in the shadows, but it was no use. One by one, the figures stopped chanting. Their heads turned. Slowly. In perfect synchronization. Toward them. Connor froze. Don't move. Then all hell broke loose. The choir screamed, not with mouths, but with their eyes. Sockets erupted with black ichor, and a sonic blast hit them like a hurricane of anguish and madness. The air shook. Their bones rattled. Sasha collapsed, clutching her skull. They're in my head. They're screaming in my head. Run! Hannah yelled, dragging her forward. They bolted past the figures, weaving through the circle. One lunged at Connor, teeth like rusted nails snapping inches from his face. Another grabbed Sasha's leg. Hannah whipped out her pocketknife and slashed at the hand. It was cold. Too cold. As if it belonged to something long dead. They broke free and plunged into the next tunnel. The air shifted. No more flesh walls. This time it was stone, carved with strange symbols, swirls and spirals like wormholes, like mazes. The chanting behind them faded. But now they could hear something worse. Breathing. Not their own. From all sides. Wet. Gurgling. Like something was leaking from a broken throat. We shouldn't be here, Sasha muttered, stumbling. We were lured, Connor said. The dolls. The road. The house. None of it was real. Just bait. Hannah shook her head. No. It's real. It's just not from this world. Suddenly, Connor stopped. What is it? Hannah asked. He turned. And vomited. Before them stood a mural, carved into the stone, glowing faintly with pulsing green light. It showed people. Humans. From different time periods. Colonial settlers. Soldiers. Even someone in a modern hoodie. All worshipping a massive creature, half human, half rooted. Its head was a mass of antlers and mouths. Its hands were trees. Its eyes, thousands of them, scattered across its torso. And beneath it, the words etched in blood. The rooted God wakes in the bone of the earth. What the hell is that? Sasha gasped. Connor wiped his mouth. It's what lives here. What this whole place feeds. Suddenly, a sound behind them. Soft. Wet. Like a foot dragging. Then a voice. Home. They spun around. From the tunnel behind them crawled a thing, once human. Now barely recognizable. Its face was split down the middle, blooming like a flower. Inside, rows of teeth. Its arms were bent the wrong way, legs fused at the knees. Black fluid spilled from its throat. It reached toward Hannah. You belong. They ran again. Through another tunnel. Down another flight of bone stairs. Each level, worse than the last. They passed rooms filled with screaming infants nailed to trees, walls where people were sewn into the stone, alive and twitching. One room held a table where a man was being skinned slowly by invisible hands, his mouth sewn shut, tears streaming down his face. They couldn't help him. They couldn't stop. Finally, they reached what looked like a cathedral. Massive. Domed. Hollowed from black stone and rotted roots. At its center stood a throne made of human spines. Sitting upon it was her. The mother. The high priestess of the bone choir. She had no skin. Only muscle. Her face was made of others, stitched together, constantly shifting. Eyes blinked across her stomach. Her hands were nothing but bone, sharp and spider-like. "You have come," she crooned, in a voice that sounded like a chorus of children and dying animals. "You have walked the path." "We didn't mean to," Hannah said, backing away. "There are no wrong turns here," the mother whispered. "Only invitations accepted." She raised a hand. Behind them, the walls began to bleed. From the blood came forms, shapes rising, twisting, becoming creatures made of bone and regret. Tall. Hollow-eyed. They hissed. "We're going to die," Sasha cried. "No," the mother said. "Worse." She pointed to Connor. "The seed is in him. The rooted God grows inside." Connor screamed. Fell to his knees. His stomach moved. Something inside. Growing. Fast. Veins bulged from his skin. His eyes rolled back. He howled in agony. "Help me," he cried. They couldn't. The mother smiled wider. And Connor split open. Blood. Bones. A flood of black vines poured from his body, wrapping around the room. Eyes blinked open on each tendril. Teeth lined every stem. The vines reached for Sasha and Hannah. Hannah grabbed Sasha and pulled her backward. "Run!" They sprinted out of the cathedral as Connor's body-turned vessel exploded behind them. The rooted god spawn screamed its birth cry, a sound that shattered the torches on the walls and made the ground crack. They didn't look back. They kept running. Somehow, they reached a tunnel that looked new. Fresh. Carved by unnatural means. The walls were smooth. The chanting faded. They reached a staircase that went up. Hope. Maybe a way out. Behind them, the bone choir's scream echoed, furious. They climbed. Each step burned. Their lungs ached. The air grew thinner. They emerged into a cave. Real. Natural. Light, actual daylight, poured in from a narrow crack above. They pushed through. Collapsed onto dead leaves and real soil. Trees. A forest. They were out. Or so they thought. Until they turned around. The cave entrance had vanished. And hanging from a nearby branch was a doll. This time, it had Connor's face. The forest was too quiet. The kind of silence that didn't just feel unnatural, it felt wrong, like the world had paused to watch something suffer. Sasha sat on her knees in front of the doll. It dangled from a crooked pine branch like an accusation. Its stitched face was unmistakable, Connor. His blue eyes, his cracked glasses, the same mole on his left cheek. Except it wasn't just a doll. It was wet. And warm. Sasha reached out with trembling hands. As she touched it, it blinked. "Jesus," she recoiled, falling onto her back, scraping her palms. Hannah pulled her to her feet. "Don't touch it." Sasha was crying now, trembling with a shock she couldn't process. He was my little brother too, Hannah. He didn't deserve this." "I know." Hannah fought to stay composed. The horror clawed at the back of her throat like bile. "But we can't stop. If we stay here, whatever did that to him will find us." They backed away from the tree, but not before they noticed something even more disturbing. More dolls. Dozens. Hanging from the trees in a perfect circle around them. Each one different, yet eerily lifelike. Some had adult faces, others the haunting expressions of children. One doll had a knife embedded in its eye socket. Another had no mouth, just flesh sewn tight across where lips should have been. "We're not alone," Sasha whispered. From deep within the forest, a low creaking noise echoed. Like old wood being twisted. A rhythm. Back and forth. Back and forth. Step. Drag. Step. Drag. Then the laughter. High-pitched. Off-beat. Like a child mimicking laughter without understanding it. Hannah clenched her jaw and grabbed Sasha's wrist. "We need to move. Now." They ran, weaving through the trees, branches clawing at their skin. Their footsteps crunched over fallen leaves and scattered bones, animal bones, maybe human. The path seemed random, but something primal guided them, tugging them forward. They reached a clearing. And froze. There, standing in the mist, were figures. Dozens of them. They looked human. Sort of. They stood perfectly still, lined up like soldiers in decaying clothing. Their skin was gray, stretched too tight over their bones. Their eyes glowed faintly with a dull amber light, flickering like candle flames behind paper. Their mouths hung open, unblinking. Slack. Some were missing arms. Others had ribs poking out through torn flesh. One was missing a face entirely, just smooth skin where eyes, nose, and mouth should have been. The Hollow Kin. Hannah didn't know how she knew that name. But she did. "They're empty," she whispered. "Not dead. Not alive. Just, hollow." Sasha took a shaky step back. "Are they waiting for us to move? I think they're listening." As if triggered by her words, the closest hollow snapped its head toward them. The sound was sharp, like bone cracking. Another followed. Then another. Dozens of heads turned. Slowly. Precisely. All focused on Hannah and Sasha. Then they spoke. All at once. In perfect unison. "You opened the path. You crossed the threshold. You carry the seed. We don't want any part of this." Sasha cried. "Let us go." The Hollow Kin didn't move. But their mouths opened wider. Too wide. Unnatural. Their jaws unhinged. And the sound that poured out wasn't a scream, it was music. A twisted harmony of moans, growls, and discordant flute-like whines. The song of the hollow. The forest began to change. Trees bent inward, forming walls. The ground turned wet and sticky beneath their feet, like walking through raw meat. Leaves blackened and crumbled into ash. Moss sprouted eyes and watched them. And the Hollow Kin started to move. Step. Drag. Step. Drag. Run. Hannah shouted, dragging Sasha by the arm. They broke through the clearing, crashing into dense brush. Branches tore their skin. A root caught Sasha's foot, she fell hard, landing face first in the mud. Hannah yanked her up, ignoring the blood on her friend's face. Behind them, the Hollow Kin howled. The sound tore at their minds, slithering into their ears, whispering promises of peace, belonging, release. They found a narrow trail, half overgrown with vines. It wound downward toward a stream, a black, slow-moving ribbon of water that smelled like decay. "We can't cross that," Sasha panted. "Do we have a choice?" Hannah looked behind them. The forest was moving now. Trees shifting to close them in. Hollow Kin stepping between trunks, their joints popping with every movement. Hannah took a deep breath and stepped into the stream. The water burned. Not with fire, but memory. Images slammed into her mind the moment her skin touched the current, Connor screaming. Her father's funeral. A girl she hit with a bicycle when she was 12. Her first kiss. A miscarriage no one ever knew about. The water fed on her past. She pushed forward, forcing her way through it. Sasha screamed as she stepped in, clinging to Hannah. It's showing me things I never told anyone, things I forgot. They reached the far bank, collapsing onto the mud. Behind them, the hollow kin stopped at the edge of the stream. They would not cross. But they watched. Still. Silent. Waiting. Hannah's skin crawled as she met their dead eyes across the water. They knew. This wasn't over. The girls moved forward. Night fell too quickly. Like it had been pulled down from the sky. The forest was now a labyrinth, winding paths, impossible geography. The trees whispered. The ground shifted beneath them. They passed the same tree with a spiral carving 4 times. Then they heard her again. The mother. Whispering from beneath the soil. Keep walking. You can't stop now. You belong. You belong to him. Shut up. Sasha screamed. Leave us alone. Suddenly, the earth buckled. Sasha vanished with a cry. Sasha. Hannah dropped to her knees. A hole had opened beneath her, a maw in the ground, ringed with teeth-like roots. Hannah didn't hesitate. She dove in after her. They fell. Again. Into darkness. The landing was hard, but they were alive. Sort of. They were no longer in a forest. They were in a room, stone walls carved with spirals and screaming faces. A single torch burned in a wall bracket. In the center stood a stone table. Upon it. A book. Made of skin. It pulsed. A heartbeat. The air was heavy with pressure. Like something enormous waited just outside their sight, coiled in the dark. Hannah approached the book. It opened on its own. The pages turned rapidly, stopping on an image. 2 women. One with red hair. One with black. Their eyes were scratched out. Beneath it, ancient text shifted until it read. The bearers. The last descent. One to seed. One to serve. The air dropped 10 degrees. Sasha backed away. This is about us. No, Hannah whispered. It's worse than that. We were chosen. The stone beneath them cracked. From the fissures crawled hands, dozens of them. Some skeletal. Some fleshy. Some impossibly long. They reached toward the women. A voice filled the chamber. His voice. The rooted God. Ancient. Starved. Hungry. You brought me the vessel. You shall know my face. The torch blew out. Darkness swallowed them. And then. A blink. They were back in the forest. Morning light. Birds chirping. Trees normal. The road, a real road, just ahead. They looked at each other. No wounds. No mud. No blood. Just standing in the woods like nothing had happened. Was it a dream? Sasha asked, voice shaking. But then they saw it. The doll. Hanging from the road sign. This time. It had both of their faces. The road ahead shimmered in the soft morning light. Birds sang in distant treetops. Dew glittered on ferns like diamonds. It looked peaceful. But nothing was. Not after what they had seen. Not after that doll, hanging from the road sign, swinging gently in the breeze like it didn't carry the weight of something monstrous. It had their faces. Hannah's green eyes. Sasha's dark freckles. Even the faint scar Sasha had above her right eyebrow from falling off her bike at 9. Sewn together. Two halves of one horrific creation. What does it mean? Sasha whispered, voice cracking. Why, us? Hannah didn't answer. Her eyes were locked on the road. We were supposed to walk out of hell. But we didn't leave. Not really. Then where are we? Hannah slowly turned to her friend. I think we're still inside it. Behind them, the forest seemed to breathe. And just ahead, down the road, something was waiting. They walked. It didn't matter that the GPS was dead, or that cell service didn't exist here. The road itself pulled them forward, and every time they thought to turn back, a weight pressed down on their shoulders like unseen hands. The forest flanked the road, unnatural in its stillness. No wind. No sound of animals. The only noise was the faint creaking, wood bending somewhere, constantly shifting. They passed a rusted car on the roadside. Covered in moss. A shattered windshield. The doors had symbols scratched into the paint. Inside, bones. A full skeleton, slumped over the steering wheel, arms still gripping it like they were trying to escape. On the dashboard sat another doll. Smaller. Child-sized. It stared straight at them. Eyes made from fingernails. Lips sewn shut with hair. They kept moving. Eventually, they saw it, a cabin, just off the road. Small. Weathered. Almost ordinary. Too ordinary. Hannah stopped. We shouldn't go in. I know, Sasha said. But something wants us to. They stepped onto the porch. The door was unlocked. It opened with a soft creak, revealing a single room with a fireplace, a table, and a mirror hanging crookedly on the wall. There were no windows. Only the door. And the mirror. It reflected something else. Not them. But two versions of them, twisted and wrong. Hannah's reflection had bark spreading from her mouth like a parasite. Her eyes were empty sockets. Sasha's reflection had skin peeling in strips, revealing vines pulsing beneath. They stared in silence. Then the mirror whispered. Take root. Become. Sasha backed away. I want to leave. I want to forget all of this. I want to wake up. But it wasn't a dream. It was becoming reality. The walls of the cabin began to ripple. Wood shifting. Grain patterns spiraling like fingerprints. The floor beneath them softened, sagging slightly. Something's happening to the cabin, Hannah said. We have to. Thud. They both froze. Another thud. From beneath the floor. Like something massive pounding upward. Thud. 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 The boards cracked. Then split. And something rose. It looked human, at first. A man, naked, skin gray and stretched thin. But his chest was open, ribs cracked wide, and inside was a tree. A living, black-veined, thorny tree growing inside his body, bursting through his chest like a parasite. His eyes glowed a sick, yellow-green. Roots hung from his back like tendrils. And his voice sounded like leaves whispering during a storm. You've seen his face. You carry the seed. Now you must choose, rot or rebirth. Sasha screamed. Get away from us. But he didn't move. He just watched. And then, more came. From the walls. From the ceiling. From beneath the floorboards. Figures, hollow and twisted, some with bark fused to their faces, others with moss where skin should have been. Creatures no longer entirely human. Root-bound. You are chosen, they whispered in unison. Then the man pointed to the mirror. See the truth. The mirror shifted again. This time it didn't reflect anything. It showed something. A vision. They saw the forest, ages ago. Before humans. Before roads. A massive being, rooted in the heart of the earth, sleeping beneath the soil. Older than gods. Older than names. It dreamed in rot, fed by bones, worshipped by tribes long vanished. It was the rooted god. Its followers built tunnels. Chambers. Ritual paths. They lured people to feed it. People who made wrong turns. They saw the first doll, a totem, meant to carry a piece of the victim. Binding them. They saw the bone choir, singing their victims into madness. They saw themselves. Walking into the forest. Carrying the seed. 2 vessels. One to become. One to bear. The mirror shattered. The creatures lunged. Hannah grabbed Sasha, dragging her out of the cabin just as the walls began to sprout roots, pulsing with green light. The cabin folded inward, like it was breathing in. Then it was gone. Not collapsed. Gone. Like it had never been there. They ran down the road again. Each step felt heavier. Like the earth itself was trying to hold them in place. Eventually, they reached a sign. Mile marker 17. They had come full circle. Back to the start. Back to the first doll. Only now, the forest was no longer hiding its true form. The trees had changed. Bark peeled like skin. Roots twisted in shapes that looked like arms and legs. Leaves whispered words in ancient tongues. And from the ground, hands reached upward, pale, skeletal, twitching fingers clawing at the air. The rooted god was waking. They heard its heartbeat, deep and slow, shaking the very soil. And worse, they could feel it inside them. Growing. Sasha fell to her knees, clutching her stomach. It's inside me. Hannah felt it too. Her veins throbbed. Her breath came in shudders. She collapsed beside her. And from the trees, the root-bound came to surround them. Not to kill. But to welcome them. Take root, they whispered. You were never lost. Only chosen. Sasha looked at Hannah, eyes wide with horror. We're not getting out, are we? No, Hannah said softly. We never were. The forest closed in. And took them. The earth was wet beneath her cheek. Cold. Alive. When Hannah opened her eyes, she was face down in soil that pulsed faintly, as if breathing beneath her. Her hands sank into it slightly, like the ground had softened to welcome her body. She sat up slowly. Her head throbbed with pressure, like something had taken root inside her skull and was stretching its limbs. Sasha lay nearby, curled in a fetal position, whimpering in her sleep. Her skin had taken on a pallor, and the veins on her arms pulsed faintly green beneath the surface. Hannah's heart sank. No, no, no. She looked around. They were no longer near the road. No longer in a forest. They were in the harvesting ground. A vast, rotting valley of decayed trees and soil soaked with black fluid. Thousands of dolls hung from branches like fruit. But they weren't dolls anymore. They were alive. Their eyes moved. Some whispered. Others wept silently. Some screamed without making a sound. All of them, human once. Now cursed. Bound. Preserved. To her right, long rows of people, or what had once been people, stood buried up to their chins in the soil. Eyes wide. Mouths sewn shut. Faces pale and stretched thin. Roots threaded through their bodies like veins. Each of them had a doll on a nearby tree. God, Hannah whispered. Above the valley loomed a dead tree, enormous, ancient, and entirely black, its limbs broken like shattered bones. At its base was a wide, gaping hole. A maw into the earth. The womb of the rooted God. Where it all began. Where it would all end. Sasha stirred beside her, moaning softly. Her fingers had turned dark. Bark was forming on her knuckles. No, Hannah knelt beside her, shaking her. Stay with me. Don't let it take you. Sasha's eyes opened slowly. Her pupils were green. It's inside me, she whispered. I know. I can feel it, changing me. They stood together in the valley as the sky above darkened. Not nightfall, just the presence of something massive overhead. Clouds gathered in spirals, swirling like a storm without wind. A low hum vibrated through the ground. All across the harvesting ground, the buried figures began to twitch. Sasha pointed at the tree. We have to go in. Hannah looked at her like she'd lost her mind. What are you talking about? Whatever this thing is, it's been growing. Using us. We're not just sacrifices. We're carriers. The rooted God wants out. I don't want to give birth to that thing, Sasha said, tears streaming down her cheeks. I'd rather die in that hole than let it take my body. She was right. Something had been planted in them. Not metaphor. Not fantasy. Parasitic reality. If they didn't stop it, it would spread. They moved through the valley, careful to avoid the twitching heads. One of them, a man with no eyes and a jaw unhinged far too wide, tried to speak. Blood bubbled from his throat. Leave, he gurgled. It's not too late. But it was. Because the valley began to move. The buried figures started sinking into the earth. Slowly, deliberately. As if being swallowed. Consumed. Recycled. The dolls on the trees began to burn. No flames, just silent combustion. Flesh and hair turning to ash as the trees fed on them. The rooted God was hungry. When they reached the black tree, they were both bleeding, scratched, and weak. The hole at its base exhaled a breath that smelled like ancient rot and wet leaves. The temperature dropped 10 degrees. The air felt thicker. Hannah knelt at the edge and peered down. A staircase spiraled into the earth, made of ribs and vertebrae. Of course. Sasha stepped beside her. This is the only way. The last descent. Hannah nodded, too tired to argue. They climbed down. Each step was a memory. Not metaphorical, real. Visions flashed in their minds as they descended. Sasha saw herself at 5, hiding under a table while her parents fought. Then at 14, cutting herself in a locked bathroom. At 20, smiling through trauma she never shared with anyone. Hannah saw herself burying her mother, being forced to speak at the funeral, vomiting in secret afterward. She saw Connor's face the night he told her he was afraid of being forgotten. Each step deeper, peeled them. By the time they reached the bottom, they felt hollow. But that's what the rooted God wanted. The womb was massive. A chamber under the earth, shaped like a pulsating heart. The walls were coated in slime, webbed with roots that throbbed faintly. Hanging from the ceiling were people, wrapped in cocoons of bark and moss. Some moved. Others had already turned to wood. At the center of the chamber was a pool of black fluid, and something rose slowly from it. The rooted God. Not fully formed. Still growing. It was massive. Limbs like tree trunks, its face a mass of writhing mouths and insect eyes. Its chest opened with a wet sound, revealing Connor's face, smiling. Twisted. Changed. Join us, the mouths said in unison. You were never lost, said Connor's voice. You were planted. Sasha stumbled forward. No. Hannah screamed, grabbing her arm. But Sasha looked at her, calm, at peace. It's too late. It's in me. But it's not too late for you. No. Don't say that. Sasha took a knife from Hannah's belt. And stabbed herself in the stomach. The wound pulsed green. Black sap poured out. The rooted god screamed, a sound like a forest dying. Sasha fell to her knees, smiling as tears ran down her face. "Run!" Hannah screamed. "Sasha!" But Sasha plunged the knife deeper and fell into the black pool. The water churned. The tree god shrieked and thrashed. And the womb began to collapse. Hannah ran. She didn't know how she got out. The walls cracked. Roots lashed out. She climbed through a fissure in the tree, through mud, through blood, through screaming soil. Eventually. Light. Real light. Dawn. The real forest. Not twisted. Not haunted. Just, forest. She stumbled onto the road again. Collapsed. Wept. But no one came. No one ever would. She walked for miles. Eventually, a ranger found her near mile marker 12. She didn't speak. Not for days. When they finally found her voice, all she said was, "Don't go past 17. Don't turn. Never descend." They didn't believe her. Of course they didn't. But they never found Sasha. They never found the road she spoke of. And weeks later, a ranger disappeared. Then a family. All last seen near mile marker 17. And hanging in the woods. A new doll. Two faces again. Hannah. And the ranger. The trees weren't trees anymore. They pulsed. They bled. And when Eli and Lena found the boundary between the old woods and the cursed ones, it was like stepping into a second skin, too tight, too warm, too familiar. Like the forest recognized them. They had followed the screams. The recordings left behind by Hannah had spread across the internet like wildfire. Most people dismissed them as found footage fiction. But Eli knew her. She had been his cousin. And her voice in that final clip, whispering, "Don't go past 17. Don't turn. Never descend," had chilled him deeper than anything he'd ever heard. So he came. Brought Lena, too. They shouldn't have. The ground cracked underfoot like old bones. Mushrooms pulsed on tree bark, releasing spores with each footstep. Lena pulled her hoodie tighter, coughing as she waved the foul dust away. "This isn't right," she whispered. "No," Eli said. "But we need answers." They passed trees with bark peeled away in patterns, symbols. Spirals, eyes, ribcages. One trunk had fingers growing out of it. Another bled when brushed. The deeper they went, the more wrong the world became. Lena pulled out the map, torn from Hannah's notebook. The ink had bled in the rain, but one word still stood clear across the center. Feeds. She didn't ask what it meant. She didn't want to know. Around dusk, they came to a clearing where the forest had pulled back, or been torn away. In the middle was a pile of bodies. Hundreds. Some were wrapped in vines, others pinned to trees by thorns. A few still moved. Not alive, not exactly, just reacting. Eyes rolled. Chests rose slightly. Skin twitched. "My God," Lena whispered. A child's hand reached from the pile. "Help," it gurgled. Eli stepped forward. Lena grabbed his arm. "Don't." But it was too late. The moment his boot touched the edge of the clearing, the trees screamed. Not wind. Not wolves. The trees themselves. Bark splitting into mouths, branches quivering, howling with the voices of the dead. Eli fell to his knees, clutching his head. "Get out of my mind." Lena dragged him backward. Her skin burned where the roots touched her. They didn't stop until they collapsed near an old, rusted truck half swallowed by ivy. Inside, scrawled in dried blood on the dashboard. It feeds on regret. Night came fast. The forest came alive. Things crawled just outside their flashlight beams, shapes too tall, too thin. Whispering. Lena didn't sleep. Eli twitched in his dreams. He saw Hannah. But not as he remembered her. She was rooted into the ground, her body half wood, half meat, eyes blank, mouth sewn shut. She mouthed something. "You brought it with you." Eli awoke screaming. He had scratched himself raw in his sleep. Bark grew from beneath his fingernails. Lena backed away from him slowly. "You need to leave me," he said. "No. We finish this together." They found the pit the next morning. It wasn't dug. It had grown. A perfect spiral, descending into the earth, lined with roots that throbbed like veins. Screams echoed faintly from below. Not echoes. Not tricks. Real. Alive. Feeding. As they stood there, something massive moved deep in the hole. A hand. No, a root in the shape of a hand. Fingernails of bone. Flesh hanging like wet moss. It reached upward. Toward them. They ran. Through the trees, back toward where the road should have been. But it wasn't. The forest had shifted. The path behind them was now wall. Trees stacked shoulder to shoulder, their trunks fused with faces. Screaming. Weeping. Regretting. Lena turned to Eli. His eyes were glowing green. "It's in you," she said. He nodded. "I'll lead it away," he said. "You go. Find the hollow. Burn it." "No. You have to. It fed on me. I let it. Now it wants more. It wants you." He ran before she could stop him. The forest followed him. Trees bent. Roots slithered. Screams moved like a wave. Lena was alone. And then, from the trees ahead, a figure. Small. Frail. Hannah. Or what was left of her. She pointed toward the east. And whispered with cracked lips. "Burn it all." The hollow was real. Lena found it as dawn bled into the trees, a dim, dead glow sifting through the thick canopy like spoiled milk. It wasn't just a place, it was a wound in the earth, a gaping black sore oozing sap and screams. The trees bent away from it in reverence, like worshippers around a pulsing altar. And there, in the center of it all, lay the heartroot. It was massive, twisting veins and tendrils of wood and rotten bone, pumping in slow, sick pulses. Faces floated just beneath its bark, screaming in silence. Eyes opened. Closed. Opened again. They were watching her. The forest knew. Lena stepped forward, shaking. Her boots sank into the mulch, flesh, blood, and old fabric. Bones snapped beneath her soles. Whispers clawed at her ears. "You shouldn't have come. He's waiting. It's you it wanted all along." She raised the match. But her hand trembled. A vine slithered around her wrist. Another coiled around her ankle. Then a voice. Not from the trees, not from the wind, but from beneath the earth. "Burn me, and you burn your blood." She screamed and struck the match. It hissed out. From the black roots, a shape rose. Tall. Towering. Eli. No longer human. His body twisted with bark and scars, face cracked open like wood split by lightning. His eyes were green fire. His mouth bled black sap. Veins writhed over his arms like worms. "Lena," he said. "It lives through me." She backed away. "I know. But I have to stop it." He took a step forward. The heartroot pulsed behind him, faster now, sensing danger. It was never supposed to be us, Eli whispered. It was always us. Lena raised the flask of gasoline she'd carried since the truck. I'm sorry. She poured it in a circle around the heartroot. Eli screamed. The trees screamed with him. The forest shook. She struck another match. Goodbye, Eli. She dropped it. The explosion wasn't fire at first. It was light. White hot. Pure. Radiating across the forest like a flood of rage and retribution. The heartroot shrieked. Its faces split open. The roots snapped like tendons. The trees fell to their knees. The ground itself opened, swallowing the altar whole. Eli burned. Not screaming. Smiling. You freed me, he whispered as the flames took him. Then he was gone. Lena crawled through the wreckage. The forest was dying. No more whispers. No more eyes. Just ash. And silence. And the smell of earth purged. She made it back to the trail, limping, coughing, eyes hollow. The road appeared where it hadn't before. A ranger truck passed by. They stopped. You okay, miss? You're not supposed to be out here. This whole region's been off limits for months. Rock slide. Lena just nodded. They didn't question her. They drove her out. And for a moment, she thought it was over. 2 months later. In a new city. A new apartment. New life. Lena watered the houseplant on her windowsill. But the soil was wrong. Too dark. Too warm. A tiny root reached up toward her hand, brushing her fingertip. And somewhere, beneath the city, the heartroot twitched. It had fed. It had burned. But it had not died. It had descended. And now it was growing again. End.